to kind of dovetail on that, to bring it back from my initial point, because we are so, I don't want to say patriot-centered today, you gotta strike while the iron is hot, and you know that from a union perspective, knowing that when you have an issue and you're riding it, and we're sitting in NYSUT room, and you know they had an issue a couple years with the governor, and you push, we don't have the luxury anymore of getting one win, and then you're like, oh, you get a win, and then you can just wait until the next big issue, and then you're like, okay, we gotta fight. It's like a constant, everyday struggle. You know, I always say it's kind of like you gotta keep your, you know, foot to the throat and keep going, because really this is what we're talking about. And I think relative to veteran issues, because it's so hypersensitive where we are now, you strike while the iron is hot. If there are things that are affecting veterans, because we don't know what's gonna happen in 10 years, you know, where it could be the reversal again, where we're like, we're so super saturated with war, people are tired, we're spending so much money. It's not about the people. I think, you know, war is different than the actual people, you know, who are coming home every day. That I think that if there's something significant that, you know, we need to push forward, now's the time. Money is flowing, maybe not in New York State, but money is flowing, you know, from the feds relative to, you know, tripping over themselves as far as veterans in service. And I do think that there's a way in which you put your money where your mouth is. If you have a representative and who is giving you lip service, then you keep pushing, A problem is these omnibus bills that we have. And this is, it's not an excuse, it's true. When we vote in Albany on the state budget, everything's rolled into a thing. And so you might have a couple different portions, but you're, you know, in the middle of the night, yes, no, you're voting, but essentially it's all lumped in. If you're talking about separate bills, what you want is something that you can vote on separately outside of the budget, even though the governor doesn't like that and it has money involved. And that's what happens with the feds. Everything's rolled into one. So if I say no, and it could be no to a veteran issue, you're voting no to education, no for that bridge in your neighborhood, no for, you know, money for an extra school or for a bus, you know, for your city. Unfortunately, it like forces you to either be like yes or no. Yes to all of the wonderful other things, or no, just because it didn't include that thing for veterans, but I'm sorry, you don't get any education money or anything like that. It's unfortunate we vote that way, because I think that there's a lot of times that it could be more positive outcomes for different industries and different sets of people if we were able to separate out legislation instead of bundling everything together.
Sure. I have a question. One of the two candidates for president, the extraordinarily ignorant one, has said as much that if you're strong, you won't develop PTSD. How do you deal with some ignoramus like that?
I don't think you can with that particular but it's a legitimate question. I mean, I think I guess my 2 cents for what it's worth is ignorance. A lack of understanding, a lack of experience or appreciation for people generally, or people that have dealt with that issue. I mean, to me, it's that simple, and it's sort of pathetic, generally. But when you're talking about folks at that level, I mean, it's inexcusable. I don't know. I mean, I guess he's referring to comments that were made during I think it was a speech or maybe like a town hall type discussion with Trump, right, where he made some remarks with respect
to veterans.
And the problem is,
right, 2 veterans. Like, there were veterans.
It just, you know, it's says that it's coming from him, but you know, it just goes to show his own, like Brian said, his own life experiences. He's never been there. I mean, you know, I come from a family where 88% of the men were all in the military, including myself. It was just a way of life. I mean, it wasn't a matter of, you know, when, it was a matter of which branch and when you get out of high school type of thing. So coming from him, he's never seen any of these adversities. I mean, the closest thing he's seen to PTSD was watching it on the nightly news or some movie, you know, program or something. He has no idea. I mean, so you take it with a grain of salt. I mean, for us that are slightly more educated than him, I would say.
I think there's a way in which, and I can't believe I'm fixing my mouth to actually say this, but that there's a way in which I think sometimes very difficult because people sometimes don't sometimes sharing equals not being strong, that sometimes we would rather say strength equals being able to carry on in adversity. And I am a soldier and I had PTSD and I'm strong and I'm not saying anything. And those are the heroes. Those are the people who can handle it compared to I'm a person who has PTSD and maybe I'm having trouble at work or I need help, and those aren't the strong ones. And I think not giving any kind of credit to that statement, but I think it's how people are able to cope with PTSD in society where someone thinks someone's strong because they have it or don't show signs of, and symptoms of it, rather than someone who has it and is struggling. And I go back to my statements from before where we're talking about combat veterans, but PTSD can be in various shades where it's my mother died and I'm struggling and now I'm having, stress, related to my mother's death. Or maybe I was a victim of sexual assault and military sexual assault and trauma, and that has forced me to have PTSD. Or maybe I was in combat and had, so there's different levels of it, and sometimes it takes longer, sometimes people get help, and sometimes they don't. And I think not talking equals strength. I don't agree with that, but I think sometimes people think that's a macho thing. I'm not talking about it equals strength. I'm strong. I can, am resilient and don't have to say anything compared to the person who says, this is affecting me. I don't agree with that, but I think, sometimes there are people who think that saying something may equal weakness.
I don't want to say I'm glad he said this, but I think it brought awareness to the issue that people equate strength and not having any mental illness. I'm glad that this is a conversation that has come out of it, and education like these, where we talk about the issues up front, I think really brings awareness to everyone here and maybe can spread to the community. So I'm hoping that this will continue this conversation in different forums.
Yeah. Anybody else have any thoughts?
And sort of follows up, I've been a labor arbitrator for a long time. I know some of you in that capacity, and it's amazing how creative people can be in screwing up their jobs after a lifetime. But that aside, I hear cases where the person who's been discharged obviously has problems. I've seen it with veterans, and I've seen it with other people, and things like anger problems. And yet, when the case is before me, hardly ever does the union raise any kind of disability issue. And I wondered about this, and I wonder if the explanation isn't what the assemblyman said and what Cary said, that people don't want their unions to let me know that they have some kind of problem. Because I hear these cases and it just seems obvious to me. Why aren't they raising this?
So just first of all, we're talking about labor arbitrations, discipline discharge cases where the standard typically is, was there just cause for the termination? So this would come into play, I think, in terms of the arbitrator's consideration of the case. Like in what, maybe you could just touch on that. Are we talking about mainly mitigating circumstances? In other words, yes, this conduct happened, it was against the rules, but let's consider what was going on with this person. But in other words, how would that evidence sort of be relevant to your
Well,
consideration?
I'll give you one example of a case where a guy, they never brought this out, but the guy's a veteran and he bursts out in anger at work. And it seems to me if you were to explain that this is a guy who's reliving some things that happened, but it passes and he's not a threat to anyone, that might make a different story than if you're just looking at a person who, has anger all the time. And maybe that's inexcusable, but maybe in this case it is.
To your point, in the staff rep's position, and prepping for a case, we may know that's an issue, but to piggyback on what Keith said, I could look at him and say, hey man, I know I got something going on. I said, and I could say, I want to try to use your disability to further this case. And he's, and not saying that it's going to happen all the time, but very well what Keith said, they're going to look at me and say, it's going to show that I'm weak. I'm not weak. Understand that when I go in the military, regardless which branch it is, they strip me down, and then they rebuild me. And it takes me, independent to the individual, a set amount of time to to reprogram myself. And right at this point in time, you're not calling me weak. You can take that job and make stuff. I understand you're doing your best, but there's no way I'm gonna admit that I have an issue right now.
And how do you respond to that? I mean, certainly you gotta respect the individual's
I think it
issues,
goes back to
but-
what Keith said, that you can't, you know, the person has to be able to help themselves, I think
If
that.
that individual was to tell me, do not use my disability as his case, then I would tell them, you're tying our hands. You are tying our hands, understand that, I respect you, we'll proceed with the case this way. And
Right.
What's
Well,
the
full
result?
disclosure, you're telling them, obviously, you know, this is gonna impact the
Absolutely.
presentation of your
Yeah.
case, and it might hurt your case, and, you know, if they're okay with that, then.
And it's right, if the individual chooses, that, you know, I don't want that disclosed, I'm gonna say, all right, well then, you know, we're going into this possibly our hands tied in a certain light, and understand that this may not get the end results that we all want.
And
And
what
then
if
some of
you
them
give,
are okay with that.
and sometimes, you know, kind of under the rules that some arbitrators certainly hold us to, if we go through the entire grievance process, okay, and the individual has not allowed us to raise that issue until we head to arbitration, okay? And then he comes and he says, you know, I really thought you were gonna be able to get me back, but, since we're gonna go to arbitration, you know, okay, you can get into that a little bit. I'm gonna have attorneys on the other side saying, you're not bringing in new evidence now, you had that all the way through the grievance process, we never heard it, okay? And, 'cause I had that exact thing happen with one case, that there was a disability I could have argued, I'm not gonna say necessarily related, service related, okay? But, in what I did there, I was able to go back to the employer before the arbitration case happened, okay? Kind of have a little off the record, and we came up with a, kind of a last chance. But we went all the way through the grievance process, and I can see that happening in this case. You know, as an arbitrator, you're not gonna allow new evidence to come in at that point traditionally. I mean, you know, I would argue like hell that, look, it's a symptom of the disease, the denial of any weakness. But there's that part of the issue too, and I guess that's on my radar screen, because that exact thing happened to me once.
Well, everybody has a tendency of doing it to where just veterans don't wanna show any sign of weakness, but in my very short time in the manufacturing world, it doesn't matter what category you fall underneath. So guys expect you to be down when you have a death in the family. They expect you, but really anything else like that, sometimes you have to control it, and they have to crush it fairly quickly. It's like blood in the water, and you've got guys that just sit there and really nitpick at it, to do it. So it's really not just because you're a veteran.
Mhm.
It's just, it's really our society. Because you actually have guys that have no military service, and I know something's wrong, but they're not willing to take that next step forward, to go forward with it. So.
All right, one of the things I really liked that came out of this was Scott, when you talked about maybe having somebody designated at the floor level, kind of, you know, and I would attribute that to, most of my locations tend to be relatively small. And it wouldn't have to be related to combat vet, although they could certainly tie into it. And have someone there that could open the dialogue a little bit easier than somebody feeling like, you know, they're walking into the HR manager's office. And sometimes that might help. But Keith, your point's well made, you know, I think part of our responsibility needs to be to help facilitate getting that individual some help, try to move them along in the right direction, no matter what it is. Your point's well made. They've gotta be an active participant at some point, okay? And I think sometimes we've gotta help them get there a little bit. I know there's two schools of thought. I heard an old timer tell me one time, a guy said, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And this little guy I used to work with said that sometimes you can hold that damn horse here till he gets thirsty. You know, so, you know, and it made me think, I mean, so sometimes there's that line between the two, that